world full of stories. How does one author make their book stand out from the rest? Book trailers for authors. Breathtaking movie-style trailers that bring your book to life. Stunning cinematic video, epic royalty-free music. Packages starting at less than $200. Book trailers for authors. Makes a great gift for the writer in your life. Find us on Facebook at Book Trailers for Authors.
You are listening to the Barely Audible podcast. Greetings and welcome to the Barely Audible podcast. I am your host, Justin Romine, alongside Bearz, our other host. Today we have a very special guest, my sister, Melanie Brown. We're going to talk about traveling today and how you can do it very affordably if you know how to work the system. Welcome, Melanie. Can you give us a little bit of a background on you?
Hi, thanks for having me on the podcast. And I'm what they call a travel hacker, which means I try to figure out ways that I can travel that are cheaper or even free. There are a lot of different techniques you can use in order to travel not only more frequently, but in a style like much better than I would be able to afford if I were using cash. So that's basically what I do. I've been doing that for a few years. And then about a year and a half ago, I decided that I wanted to share the information with people that I do like to teach a lot. And so I thought, maybe I'll do a YouTube channel so that I can help teach people the basics on travel hacking and how they could do it as well.
Great. That's awesome. And it's on YouTube under Mel's Miles. So if you just kind of search for Mel's Miles, her page will come up and you can subscribe and check out all her videos. You have quite a few now, right?
Yeah, I do. I think like maybe around 50. Which is kind of shocking because it goes quick, I guess. So yeah, I have about 50 videos now.
And I like you also talk about the lounges at the various airports that you get to check out. I've never been in a lounge. Have you ever been in one, Bearz?
Yeah, several of them. One of my favorite ones is in the Denver airport and, of course, LaGuardia and on the island of Guadeloupe in the French West Indies. They'll have enjoyable lounges.
Which ones do you like in Denver?
The ones I like in Denver, I don't even know if I remember the bloody name of it. I just flew in a few years ago. I found myself with a layover, and I just wandered into this lounge, had a couple of drinks, and my cousin showed up, and away we went, and he took me on this amazing tour of Denver. The most astonishing thing about Denver, of course, as you're leaving the airport, is that huge horse with the red glowing eyes. Have you seen it?
Oh, I have.
I have. Yeah, I have.
You've seen it. Okay, cool. And the Denver airport is really cool, by the way, irregardless of what you hear about it. All kinds of conspiracy theories, which may or may not be true. And nonetheless, the airport itself is quite a engineering marvel, and it's quite spectacular of a design as well. Looks like this huge tent out in the wilderness, really.
Oh, cool. I'm one of the weird people that actually really like airports. So I'm always excited when I get to go to a new airport, and especially some of the really big airports, like in the Middle East and stuff. I think they're amazing. I think it's a lot of fun. It's always exciting, and think about what all the people are doing, where they're all going. Everybody has a story.
I haven't been to the Middle East yet, but I'd love to go to Dubai sometime.
Yeah.
I would too. Yeah.
That was my very first solo trip, actually, was the Middle East. And I went because I ended up getting, I don't know why that's making noise. Sorry.
That's no worries.
Okay. I went because I found a great deal on a particular flight that I really wanted to do. And so when there's a really good deal with points on a flight, you have to jump and get it and then figure out all of the rest later. So that's been kind of hard for me because I'm a big planner, but I did it. I jumped in and got the first, and it was from London to Abu Dhabi. And so then that's all I knew about my trip, was that I somewhere was going to have a segment from London to Abu Dhabi. And then I pieced together the rest of the trip based on that. And it was fantastic. Ended up being one of my favorite trips. And I think it's because you end up going places that you wouldn't normally go because you're trying to do this flight. I don't think I ever would have booked a flight to the Middle East just on my own. Like, oh, where are you going to go? Oh, I think I'll go to the Middle East. But I ended up really, really loving it. It was amazing. I did Abu Dhabi, Dubai, a couple of different desert resorts while I was over there, Doha, London, because on the way I got to stop in London. So ended up being a great experience for me.
Did you give
One of your recent videos was KLM, right?
Right.
You just tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, it was my first time on KLM, and they have some new business class suites. Like, business class has changed a lot in the last decade or so. It used to be like what you think of as first class in domestic flights. That used to be what business class was when you flew overseas. But now they make little individual pods, and it has a door and you can close it. And it's a lot more than what it used to be. They're kind of going away from first class, most of the airlines, at least like United, American, Delta, and focusing mostly on business class with the seats that go flat and all of that. So that's what I love about the business class, actually, is I'm a really bad sleeper. And so I don't know how people sleep in economy going overseas. And so I was kind of limited to, when I was doing economy all the time, to only flying to Europe. Like, I could do Europe. That was sort of my limit, but I wanted to do Asia, and I was like, I can't do like 16 hours in an economy seat. So that's one of the things that this has really opened up for me. Now I look forward to having as much time as absolutely possible on the plane. It's so much more comfortable. Let me see if I can I swear I have this on Do Not Disturb, so I'm not sure.
Did you give Josh some pointers before he took off for Japan?
Hopefully it won't keep ringing. Any ideas where the Do Not Disturb would be on here?
I don't know. I get texts on my computer from my phone, as I use a Mac, and I had to figure out how to turn off those notifications too.
I don't know what it is. Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Off though, so
no worries. We'll work with it. We're bugs and all here, so.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Let's hope for the best.
So how did you get started as a hacker, a flight hacker?
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, Justin. I hit the mute again. I see what's wrong. When I hit the mute, which is what I want to do so I don't get alerts, then I can't hear you. Okay.
That's all right. So let us know how you got started as a travel hacker. I'm sure you just started with airline miles, right?
Yeah, actually, I started, the first card I ever got was the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And it was when my kids were little and we weren't really traveling. And so I knew a little bit about the hobby, but not much in terms of specifics. But I also didn't need to travel anytime in the near future. So I just used that card as much as I could. That's what I started accumulating miles on first. And then started looking into it. I got a United card because I fly United a lot. Normally, I don't recommend starting with an airline card, though, because the flexible points that you get from, for example, Chase cards, Amex cards, Capital One, Citibank, those the value in the points comes when you transfer them to other airlines. There's often transfer bonuses, and you can get some really great deals on flights that way. Better than just having like United miles on the United site. So I started with the Chase card and then started accumulating. And when I got to a certain number, I think I hit like 400,000, and I was like, oh, I better learn how to use these now. So I sort of did a deep dive, which is kind of like how I am. I always end up kind of doing deep dives into things that I find interesting. And yeah, it was a fascinating world. Like, there's a whole world out there that does this. There's like boards called Flyer Talk where everybody discusses it, all kinds of different podcasts, all different kinds of YouTube channels. There's a lot of information out there if you're interested. So started researching it, and then ended up doing my first redemption was to Europe. It was a business class ticket. And after that, I was hooked.
Wow. Yeah, I'm slowly getting points on my credit card, but I don't like using it, so I don't. But we use Capital One for a lot of our purchases, and then just pay it off at the end of the month. And so we always have a lot of miles. In fact, we're going to Alabama to see my parents in December 30th,
Mm-hmm.
and all we had to pay was, I think, like $160, and that's all four of us traveling down there. So
Nice.
yeah, so that worked out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited about that. And you're not no stranger to traveling anyway. When you were younger, you did a lot of traveling. In fact, you were a graduate of Northwestern University, and while you were there, you did a year in Munich, right?
Yeah, that's probably, I can still remember being on the plane and flying over Germany. It was the first time I'd ever been out of the country, and just like how excited and amazed I was. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like on the other side of it was like a whole new thing to me because, our dad wasn't a big traveler. If
Right.
we did trips, it was locally. So I can still remember exactly how I felt back then when I landed in a foreign country. And there's something about knowing that all of these people all over the world, they all have their own cultures and their own way of being, and everybody's living at the same time, but in such incredibly different ways. I just, for some reason, has always really fascinated me. And so that year opened up a lot for me. It's very cheap when you're in Europe to take the train and travel places. And everything is really close. It's completely different than the United States. So in Germany, I remember my friend Christine and we went to Rome and we stayed in a convent. Like they had a place
Oh,
to
wow.
stay at the convent. So that was really cool. And just everywhere we could go. And then I had family in France, outside of Paris. So I would stay on all my vacations with them. And so I felt like I spent months literally around Paris. And yeah, that sort of started me on the whole, like it kind of, gave me the travel fever, so to speak. And ever since then, I've tried to travel as much as I can, even
Here's
with
an interesting
kids
fact. Guys, here's an interesting fact. On December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers made their history.
Yeah, Kitty Hawk.
It's a little over 120 years ago, but on this day, over 120
Wow.
years, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the subject.
Yeah,
That's
it's true.
true.
Imagine
And
what
then
they would
also,
think if they saw the planes of today. The planes of today are incredible.
I know. And then also 45 years ago, I was born.
Well, happy birthday, Justin.
Oh, geez, I totally forgot it was your birthday today. Happy birthday.
You never forget either.
I
Yeah.
never forget.
Right.
It shows you
Yeah.
I've been like crazy busy this week. And also, like, how is it already the 17th of December? I think that's what I
I
didn't
know.
realize. My gosh, I have like a week left before Christmas.
It's
I
a
have
day
I
full of
know.
historic events.
Yeah.
It is pretty exciting.
And of course, on this day in
Yes.
1957, the Barely Audible podcast was first launched as well. Up in
Yeah.
Antioch in Illinois.
Yeah, we've been doing it forever.
Since the late 50s.
This is actually a monumental episode. This is episode number 10 for us.
Oh, congratulations,
Wow.
everyone involved, and thank you for being on.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you guys.
So where can people start if they want to start learning to hack the traveling?
The best place to start is to get a card that earns flexible miles, like I said, because the key to all of this is being able to transfer your miles to a lot of different airlines, because then you look for rewards on all of those different sites, and wherever they have the best deal, that's where you transfer your points to. Whereas if you have an airline card, it can be useful. Like I said, I did get United because I wanted to get the free luggage and the priority boarding and stuff. So if you travel a lot, there comes a point where it is really helpful to have both hotel and airline cards. But if you're a beginning travel hacker, I always recommend starting with a flexible card, a card with the points that you could transfer to a bunch of different airlines.
Yeah, that's how it looks like. You can start earning your miles. I mean, if you have a little bit of flexibility with your funds, put everything on the credit card and pay it off at the end of the month. That can get dangerous for some people. So
That's
I
a great
don't
way to look at
recommend going into debt just to get a couple airline miles. But if you're smart about it and can kind of move around the miles and get different cards and use them, you usually can get like double points for using it at a restaurant or something like that. So
Right.
you can also
Once
find those.
exactly. Once you get a collection of cards, then you start figuring out which card is most beneficial to use. And there are some other, like, this is a hack that everybody uses in the industry, but it's probably going to sound strange to you. So, like, I had a medical bill, and all of the cards I had would only give me 1x for some of that. Like, you can get a lot for travel, restaurants. There are certain categories where you get more points than others. But there's just a general, like, bill category. A lot of times, no, it's just 1x. So I have like a Chasing Cash card that gives me 5x at office supply stores. So on office supply stores, believe it or not, like every couple weeks, they offer Visa gift cards with no fees. And so when they offer the no fees, all of the travel hackers flood the office supply stores and buy all of these Visa cards, get their 5x points, and then pay off the bills that they would only get 1x with these Visa cards that they got 5x. So you can make a lot of money. Like, I did one run of Visa cards once, had it more than enough points to get a ticket to Pensacola round trip. So
Yeah.
just from one like 2-minute trip into the Office Depot store. So if you have bills, I mean, the key to this game is also not overspending. Like, don't spend just to get points. So you have to sort of keep yourself in rein. And I like what you were saying about paying off every month. That is critical, because it doesn't matter how many points you get if you're paying like a high interest rate. Like, you don't want to pay a high interest rate. That's crazy. So I actually pay off as I go, which some travel hackers recommend against for some reason. They say that they think it hurts your credit, but my credit's over 800, and I've done this for my entire life, where I've paid as soon as it posts. I tend to go and pay, because then it's no different than using a debit card. It's like delayed by 2 or 3 days is all. And so it keeps you kind of organized and knowing like what your budget is and how much you've spent. Because yeah, you do definitely, like, good financial habits is the most important thing. But if you can do that, if you have self-control and you can do that and have the right habits, then I feel like when you don't get points, you're like leaving money on the table. Like, for me, if I forget to use the right card, or if I forget to go through a travel portal, I'm always like, oh man, I could have had an extra however many points. So you get into the habit where you just always are thinking about, like, how can I maximize the points here?
That's good. Yeah. So what other kind of things can people look out for when they're looking to travel? I know you kind of have to juggle, like when you do international flights. I know when you like went to Japan, you kind of have to juggle your points around, and then you usually have to end up paying taxes and fees, right? At the end.
Yeah, usually the flights do have taxes and fees, and some airlines are notorious for high taxes and fees, so you sort of know which ones and then others are really cheap, like United and American barely have any tax. But I have gotten a lot of flights where the tax is like 200 or 300, and I'm okay with that if it's an incredible flight. Like, I just recently came back from Japan in ANA first class. Haven't done the video yet, but I'm going to. And it was like I've had some incredible experiences that I never would have if I weren't collecting points. That's the thing I like about it the most, I think. So if I don't remember what my tax was for that flight. I booked it so long ago. I'm going to have to research it before I do the video. But even if I had to pay like 200 or 300 in tax, I would be okay with that. It would be worth it. For example, I have an around the world trip coming in May. This is an incredible deal, actually. ANA Airlines has this deal where for a pretty minimal number of points, which I'll tell you in a few minutes, you can take flights all the way. You have a few rules to follow. You have to circumnavigate the world. You have to cross both of the major oceans. You have to touch down in 3 continents, and you can stop up to 12 times. And you have to find award availability for all of your flights. I'm going to Turkey and then to Korea, 2 different places in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, let's see, China. I said China, right? There's more. I can't remember now all of the places, but it's a ton of places, mostly Asia. I focused it a lot on Asia, all in business class. And it cost me a total of 125,000 points and $800 in cash for taxes and fees. And it's all business class. It's incredible. It's like, I think I'm on like 12 or 13 flights. Then I fly back to LA and I stop in LA to visit with Isabella and then on to Chicago. So there are some great deals out there.
That sounds amazing. I need to start traveling more. It's, you can't take it with you. So you just use your money, use your points, travel.
Yeah.
I've only ever been to Ireland, and that was a really good trip for me. But I was
I
in
remember that. Yeah.
1999, I believe it was when I went, and so I've always wanted to go back. And then I'd like to visit Scotland. I guess I had grown up thinking I was part Irish because my mom, her maiden name is McCullum. And after research, we're more Scottish than we are Irish. Then on our dad's side, he is Scottish as well, even though the name Romine is supposed to be Italian. So the DNA tests and then like
He's
the
Irish too.
Ancestry.com.
Isn't he really
Yeah,
Irish?
I
I feel
think
like
he is.
I'm a lot
Yeah.
Irish. I got a lot of his Irish for some reason. Like a lot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
half or
he
something.
Irish and Scottish too, and we thought we were Italian growing up. Irish and Italian, so that's
Yeah.
like to fight with each other.
We should have known though. Dad looks very like Irish or at least maybe Norwegian or something. Like he doesn't look
Yeah,
Italian at all.
yeah, he's blonde hair, blue eyes.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, not Italian. And Grandpa Gibby was very adamant saying that he was not Italian. I don't know why. I guess he worked with some Italian guys at Barbara Coleman and didn't want to associate with these hoodlums. But so where haven't you been?
Okay, my bucket list that I haven't been to. I really want to go to Antarctica at some point. I want to take like a small cruise through the Drake Passage. That's a type of trip that's hard to use points on, so that's still in my future. And then I also want to do an African safari, which you can use points for those. So I just have to do the research for it. My upcoming trips are you know what? Okay, let me tell you about my very next trip, and then I can tell you something that you might find interesting. I'm going on a cruise at the end of January on Virgin Voyages, an 8-day Caribbean cruise. And as of like a year and a half ago, I had never cruised. I had no interest in cruising. Like to me, that just seemed really boring. But there was a deal going where if you get the Wyndham Earner business card, you get diamond status with Wyndham, which then you match to Caesar's diamond status. And once you have Caesar's diamond status, you start sending it to cruise lines and they give you free cruises because they think you're a gambler. Even though I don't gamble at all. I'm like completely the opposite of a gambler. So I've gone on free cruises to Alaska on Holland America. I did a transatlantic cruise with Carnival. I did just recently a Mediterranean cruise with Princess Cruise Lines. And then this is my last one, I think, Virgin Voyages to the Caribbean. And then as of next year, Wyndham is not going to match to Caesar's Diamond anymore. So that's kind of how the points world rolls. Like deals come up and you have to jump in and take advantage while they're there. because eventually I think they kind of get wise to the fact that people are doing it and they end up just continuing it. So I feel lucky that I jumped on that when I did. Otherwise, I would have, if I had just waited and thought, oh, we'll do it next year, I would have never been able to do it. So I got 4 free cruises. I did pay taxes and fees. You pay the port fees, but very minimal.
Melanie, what's the most unusual experience or the most enlightening experience you've had on any of your trips?
The most unusual, or the one that like surprised me the most, was that flight that I told you guys that started that whole trip to the Middle East for me, was London to Abu Dhabi. And it was in a product called the Apartments, which is it's their first class product, and it has a door, and you have like a chair, and then there's like sort of a sofa across from you. It's like it's a really nice product. And when it came on for points, like I think I got it for 80,000 points. Booked it right away. I was so excited. Went the day of the flight, and for some reason, like I was so nervous somehow that I would end up not getting on that flight. So I kept checking my seat to make sure I had the seat that I wanted over and over again. And all of a sudden in the lounge, my seat moved from like 4A to 1. And I was like, what? Why did they move me? I was like, what is this? So I went up to the front desk and I'm like, excuse me, but I just noticed that they moved me. Can you check and see like where the seat is and why they did? And so she pulled it up, and then she looked up and she's like, oh, congratulations, you've been upgraded to the residence. So I'm like, I knew what the residence was. I was so excited. The residence is a 3-room suite on the airplane. So I had like a living room with a long sofa. I had a bedroom, and I even had a bathroom with a shower. So it was like, I was so excited. I texted my kids when I got in the cabin. I was like, other than the birth of you 3, this is the 4th most exciting day of my life. I was so excited to be in the residence. So that was pretty exciting. And then when I landed in Abu Dhabi, it was like pretty late at night, and I made my way to the I was staying at the time, it was the St. Regis in Abu Dhabi on points. And when I checked in, they're like, oh, we've upgraded you to the deluxe suite. So I don't know what was up with that trip, but I ended up like in the residence on my way over, and then in the deluxe suite, none of which I paid for. So it was kind of incredible. I still to this day don't know why I got upgraded. Every person that's commented on the video or like contacted me has said like they never upgrade people to the residence. They never do. So it's like a complete mystery to me as to why I got upgraded, but I took it and was excited.
So how has travel changed your life? How has it affected you? And at what point did you decide this is what you wanted to spend your time on the planet doing?
I would say it's not something that changes you like overnight, but while you're there, it's changing you. Like, so I feel like when I'm home a long time and you got the news on and there's all bad news, it's easy to get a less than ideal view of humanity, because I think there are a lot of bad things going on in the world. But when I travel, all of the people, I meet so many different people in different walks of life, and people are pretty amazing. Like that's what I come away with every trip. Like so kind, so sweet, so generous of spirit and of other things as well. So I think that's maybe it restores my hope in humanity every time I travel. And I think that's one of the things that I love about it. And I can give you an example, like the last trip that I did, I went with Joshua to Japan. He had concerts with Kyoto Symphony Orchestra, and we were having dinner at somebody's house that he knew indirectly through somebody he knew in New York. And the Uber driver brought us, and it was a dark night and it was raining, and they dropped us off. And we didn't realize at the time that the Ubers in Japan in the cities have specific drop-off points. They don't necessarily drop you right in front of the place. But so we think we're there, and we go up to the house that's there. We knock on the door, and a woman answers. And she's like doing like this, like, come in, come in. And so we go in, we take our shoes off because in Japan, like the first thing you do every time you go in somebody's home is you take off your shoes. So we take off our shoes, we're bowing, she's bowing, she's got a big smile on her face. And we're like, oh, we asked for the guy's name who has invited us for dinner. And she looks confused and she holds up her finger and runs off and gets her son who can speak some English. And he asks who we're looking for. And then he looks at we have it on Google Maps, and we're at the wrong house. So here we are in a house without our shoes, like we've done all the bowing and the greetings. So she runs off and she gets 4 umbrellas, 2 for them and 2 for us. And they end up walking us 20 minutes away in the rain at night, not being able to speak English, and bring us to the place that we're looking for.
Wow.
It's experiences like that. And I have it all the time. Like I've had so many in France, like where I'll ask a storekeeper, where is something? And they'll literally go out on the sidewalk with me and walk me part of the way until I can see it. And it's, there's just something that really does warm your heart and restore your hope that people really are good deep inside. And that, I feel like the news sometimes can make us feel like it's all bad news and everybody's terrible. And then you go out there and you realize like, wow, like it is a pretty special place out there.
Well,
And just trying to understand the cultures and how people are different. Like people have completely different ways of life, but yet still inside we're all the same. There's like something about humanity that's all connected. And I just
absolutely. And obviously the first thing to do is to turn off the television and throw it out the window and never watch the news again, since it's all propaganda.
I mean, honestly, I don't even watch the news, but somehow it's still, right? You almost can't avoid it when you're home. Like you just hear it, other people talk about it.
Yeah, and I work at a TV station and I still don't watch the news.
Yeah.
I get sick of it, and I'll come home and Josephine will ask me, hey, what's going on in the news today? And I'm like, I couldn't tell you. I kind of edit it, but I edit the news, but I don't really pay attention to the stories unless it's like I'll see the name of the story has something sort of interesting in it.
Right.
I'll read it. And just if you're looking to avoid the bad stuff, watch the end of the newscast. It's called a kicker. There's usually a kicker at the end that is usually a feel-good story or something about animals or something like that. So if you want to avoid it, watch the weather and then watch the end.
I stopped watching the news even like 20 years ago when I worked in television. I would go in like you and do my edit and whatever I needed to do, and I still wouldn't watch the broadcast. Then I might go back to the station around 11:30 to catch the Tom Schneider show. I used to love how Tom Schneider interviewed.
Yeah,
he had a great interview style. But yeah,
very dark studio.
Avoid the news, everyone.
Yeah.
Think for yourself.
I completely agree.
Because every news cycle, it's about a boogeyman du jour. Who should we hate? Who should we fear this news cycle, right? And you have to ask, who does that benefit?
Exactly.
In fact, General Wesley Clark warned us of this over 2 decades ago about what's happening right now, or what they're trying to do right now. So, folks, look up General Wesley Clark, 7 countries in 5 years. It's very enlightening. Back to you, Justin.
Yeah. Well, news is really just a commercial for commercials. So, if that makes any sense. That's how they make their money.
Yeah,
The TV stations, they broadcast commercials during their newscasts or during, primetime television and stuff like that. So I think of the news as just a commercial for a commercial. That's how I kind of think of it.
Well, and also like people tend to respond more to fear than any other emotion. And so I feel like the news caters to people's fears in order to get viewers, because the more viewers they have, the more they can charge for their commercials.
Well, it's all about social engineering too, to drum up support for whatever particular political or corporate cause is, being held dear at the moment by those who temporarily hold power in society.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a question. I don't know, you probably don't get this very often, Melanie, but what is one of the worst experiences you've had traveling?
Oh, geez. I mean, to be honest, I can't even think of a terrible one. This is going to sound really stupid, but I hate London Heathrow Airport. They always end up giving me they give everybody a hard time during the TSA, like security thing, which I know that's so minor, but honestly,
Have you missed flights? And
no, I mean, okay, I did have, but see, I don't really consider this a horrible thing. But when I was flying home from Spain, I was supposed to be in business class and I couldn't get checked in. And when I finally got in there to do the in-person check-in, she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you've been downgraded to economy."
whoa,
And I was like,
no,
it ended up there. I have a video on it. There was a whole story about it. There were other people on the flight, and apparently it's a common practice. They overbook business class and then they purposely bump people down. It's a way for them to fill up their plane, basically. So, but I mean, to me, it was on the way home. The flight actually ended up being really dramatic. We had a guy who was fighting with the person in front of him who wanted to recline. And I mean, like, really fighting, like hitting the seat. And they had to come and threaten him and say, like, when we land, we're going to have security meet us if you do one more thing, that kind of thing. Then we had a guy had a medical emergency and stuff. And so when I had been boarding the plane, the people behind me had also been downgraded. So the guy comes up to me and he's like, "Who knew what we were missing up in business class? This is the most entertainment I've had like all year." So we were laughing because like everything happened on that flight. It was kind of crazy. So I don't look back at anything, even things like that, as bad experiences. They're just like a way to experience whatever it is that I'm meant to be experiencing right then. And they usually end up pretty interesting. Even like when you get lost, you end up somewhere. For example, in the Japan thing, we went to the wrong house, but we had this whole experience with somebody in Japan that I value and that I'll always remember. So I feel like things usually end up turning out the right way.
and I think on your last video, you had mentioned that you absolutely love the flight crews.
I do.
Flight,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're nice and take care of you.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when I hear people who complain like, "Oh, the service," or whatever. It makes me wonder, like, are they being nice? Because generally, like, if you're nice to people, they're nice back to you. And I like meeting them and learning about them. And all the airlines have very different personalities too, which is interesting. Like some of the airlines are very formal and it's great service and they're so polite and they're so sweet and they'll do anything for you. But I loved, for example, the flight attendants with KLM. They were kind of funny and jokey and quirky. And I just got a real kick out of them. Even my second flight that was within Europe, we flew over Switzerland and the flight attendant came and I had the whole row up in business class. For some reason, nobody had gotten the other seats. So she came and she was standing at my window. The two of us were like looking at Switzerland and talking about all our Switzerland memories and stuff. So yeah, I think you can meet really interesting people with interesting stories. Uber drivers too. They're some of my favorite people to talk to when I travel. Like, and in the Middle East, I learned so much in the Middle East talking to the Uber drivers. The Middle East I mean, you guys probably know this, but when I went to Abu Dhabi, nobody who worked, usually when you go to a country, like if you go to France, you get to meet a lot of French people at the restaurants and the shops and so forth. When you go to the Middle East, you don't meet any Emiratis or Qataris if you're in Qatar at any of those places. All of their labor is brought in from other countries like India and Pakistan. And I didn't know that somehow. So it was fascinating to hear and makes you feel so grateful for what you have when you hear people's stories. Like most of the Uber drivers over there are from India and they come over to make money so that they can send it home to their families. And I said, "Oh, like, how long are you here? When do you get to go home?" And they're like, "We never get to go home. Like, we're here forever. Our families need the money." So they like literally give up their entire life to go work in a country. They live like 7 people to a room. A few of them told me that the government like puts them up, I guess, in some sort of housing. It's really like, it just makes you realize how conditions in other parts of the world, it's just crazy, honestly. It made me feel so grateful for what we have here, because I'm usually very like, oh, geez, we're not doing enough for people and stuff. And I do feel like that. But then you meet people like that in situations that are so much worse, and you realize, wow, like, how lucky are we that we were born here and not in a country where you just can't get ahead? Like, what are your options? You go to the United Arab Emirates, you'd raise your kids from a distance and send money home. So that's one of my favorite things about traveling too, is just meeting people in such different circumstances and seeing how they live.
Do you think if we eliminated the need for money and switched over to a more of a livery system, as Buckminster Fuller once said, there's too much weaponry and we should switch over to a livery sort of system? In fact, refunnel the money to increase people's lives and, essentially take it out of the war machine. What if we did that globally? And in fact, what if we just eliminated the whole financial system, which isn't necessarily a natural system? It's a human system that has been put in place on this planet. And by and large, all it does is oppress the masses. So if we were to find a more humane sort of way to live on the planet for everyone, that would kind of eliminate poverty.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think the only issue with any of those type of theories is that there are so many people who are greedy and selfish. And so no matter what system you have in place, there is a potential for it to become crooked and slanted towards the people who want the money and who want the power. And that's the reason, like, no matter what government system we've had in place anywhere, if you think about it, every single system has failed. And I think it's just because there is a greed component to humans, sadly.
Well, perhaps we should look at greed as a mental illness then, as a sickness.
Yeah.
And treat it as such.
One of the things that I think would solve so much is if we didn't allow politicians to receive any money from corporations. That's the biggest thing. But I don't think it'll ever pass because the politicians would be the ones who would have to pass that law. But wouldn't that be amazing if there were no lobbyists and there was no money changing hands? It's such a crooked system right now, the way it is. And it
would definitely be a good start, Will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love that.
Yeah, hopeful dreaming, I guess, but we can strive to be better.
Yeah.
So, okay, my favorite thing about traveling and something that Bearz and I talk about endlessly is food.
Yes.
So, who has the best food? Who has the worst food? And what has food on flights gotten any better? It looks like on the bigger airlines it has.
Yeah,
I usually get a soda. I get a soda and a thing of pretzels because that's how I roll. But what experiences have you had?
Yeah, I love food too. And actually, I put a lot of energy into researching like the restaurants to go to. And I do food tours in a lot of places. Food tours are really fun. I've done 2 in Istanbul, both of which I loved, because you get to meet a local person and it's a very like one-on-one, even if you're in a group and you meet other people in the group who are traveling, who usually are all pretty adventurous if they're doing a food tour. So favorite food is very difficult to say because I've loved so many of my food experiences. Like I love France, Italy, cheese fondue in Switzerland is great. I love Turkey and Greece. I thought both countries had excellent food. The food that I enjoyed the least is going to make me sound really uncultured, but I'll say it anyway. Japan was so hard for me because, and I know everybody, and the whole time before I was planning on Japan, everybody talks about how incredible the food in Japan is. Like it's the best food you'll get anywhere. The problem is I don't really like seafood, which I really wish I did. And I don't really like fish, and everything in Japan, or a lot of it, is seafood based. And somehow we ended up having 3 meals that were called keiseki in a row. And the keiseki is little portions, lots of plates. So you have like 12 courses. And a lot of it is like ceviche of octopus and like different raw fishes. And it was hard for me. It was like the best food I'd ever had in one regard, because I knew it was really like high level food that I should like, but it was like the worst because it was hard for me to like I just wanted a grilled cheese and like tomato soup or something at a certain point. So the Japanese food was a struggle, but I did make myself eat it because I do believe that you should eat the food of the country you go to. Like you should be, I don't want to be the person getting American food.
Yeah, I would have a problem there too. I'm not big on seafood either, and raw fish and sushi and stuff like that. I'm not into at all.
Yeah.
So I would definitely have a problem there. And then every once in a while, Bearz sends me videos, sometimes even when I'm eating, of the stuff that they do eat in Asia. Like the fully formed birds in an egg,
Yeah.
and
Hard.
the slugs and the worms and oh my
I can
God.
do escargot. I can do the snails. Um, I did mussels actually on this last turkey tour and liked them. I don't know. The sauce they had on them was incredible. And I just pretended they weren't mussels. But um, yeah, it's hard if I overthink it too, or if I'm starting to get full and then you still have more courses and you don't want to insult the chef by not eating. And then like the last course is a bunch of raw fish or something. That was tough. And tofu, I don't really like tofu. There's always tofu
It's
in
a sponge.
Japanese food. The
Yeah.
ramen was great. I did really like the ramen, but otherwise, what probably was my least favorite in terms of food that I've been to.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's not that good. I like the hot plates, give me some pad thai and I'm happy.
Yeah.
But and then if you can bread it and fry it, I will eat it.
Well, Chinese food is supposedly really good. Josh has raved about, he spent a lot of time in China, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to being in China and trying some of the Chinese food. I think it's much more accessible than the Japanese food for me in particular, just because I'm not a fish person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I found a great restaurant this week in Waverly, New York, on the border of Pennsylvania and New York. It's called Lisa's Place, and there is a Lisa, and she's the owner. And yeah, she cooks, and she makes some of the finest American comfort food I have ever had. Her burgers are mouth-watering, and my favorite is done Parisian style with the egg. And she literally gives you a pail of homemade, hand-cut French fries. The coffee rolling. And if you're ever in Waverly, New York, ladies and gentlemen, stop down at Lisa's Place restaurant. It's an amazing, delicious restaurant. Everything's local. And she takes care of the local community too by paying it forward, and customers can, buy tickets to pay it forward. It's one of the greatest things about the area I've discovered. And Justin, who and what would you recommend in your neck of the woods?
Well, New Mexico kind of has three different cuisines. So you have Mexican food that is inspired, by traditional Mexican dishes, tacos and enchiladas and stuff like that. Then we have New Mexican food, which is kind of hard to explain to people, but it's different than Mexican food. So there's a lot of Spanish people here from Spain, as well as people from Mexico. And so they kind of mix their dishes kind of together. And then regionally, we have stuff that we call green chili. And green chili is basically a roasted and peeled chili pepper that they do in bulk. And then they kind of chop it up, add a little bit of garlic, lime, and some salt, and then they kind of chop it up, and it's kind of gooey, but it's super tasty, and it does have a lot of taste. And if you can get hot green chili as well, that's very spicy, and that's what I like. And so that's kind of New Mexican cuisine. There's the two different chilies. There's green chili and a red chili. They make a red chili sauce they put on kind of like enchiladas, and here, like, the biggest question is when you order a dish, the biggest question is red or green, and if you can't decide, you tell them Christmas, so they give you both. Um, so those are the two main cuisines here, and then we also have Native American cuisine, and some of that, a lot of lamb and stuff like that. Josephine likes to have like the mutton stuff, and so that's what you can get here. Some of the best restaurants I've ever been to are here. Frontier Grill is quite amazing. So if you come here, that's usually one place people like to stop. Um, and we've got plenty of options, so you can kind of pick. Another place I like is called Horseman's Haven, and that's up right outside Santa Fe. And they have what they call the #2 green chili, and you just order like a little tiny side of it because it is the hottest stuff you'll ever put in your mouth. My lips were burning for 45 minutes after we went there. We went there a couple of weeks ago, and about a month ago, I think. And man, my lips were burning and tingling, and it's great. I love it.
Well, good.
So New Mexico definitely has quite a bit of cuisine. We definitely have Asian. My favorite Asian place is called Tokyo Bangkok. So it kind of blends those two places together. You can get sushi or you can get Thai food. It's the best pad Thai I've ever had is there. And I like to go there, and then I tell them to make it hot. So they'll say, "Do you want it Thai hot?" And I'll say yes. And then I'm usually regretting that decision afterward. But I love the spicy food.
Yeah, so do I. Tell me, Justin, is there a fusion out there between like Mexican and Asian?
There is. So at the TV station, we have food trucks come every Friday because we have a segment that they record for the Living Show, it's called. And they have a food truck come in. We call it Food Truck Friday, and they record a segment, and then the anchors get to like sample the food and all that stuff. And then they'll say, "Okay," I'll get an email, and they'll say, "Okay, we have this food truck here from 10:30 or 11 till 1 for the employees to go." It's not free, of course, but there has been a couple fusion places, Asian, New Mexican, or Mexican and Asian food. I can't remember the names of those places, but I have tried the food, and it's pretty good.
Well, I'm on my way to New Mexico as we speak, right? I'm gonna show up there.
We're waiting for you.
I'm sure my second book is out there somewhere. So I'm gonna probably compile my second collection of poetry or write another novel out there. Melanie, do you want to wish Bert a happy birthday?
Yes, happy birthday. I can't believe how old you've gotten. I still remember you because I was in junior high when you were born.
Yeah, you were a teenager when I was born, yeah. So yeah, and then how much older is Mark from you?
He's like 2 years and 2 months, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I kind of had built-in babysitters and stuff when I was little, and I told Bearz to ask you to tell me or to tell us the story of when you were babysitting me and the Superman incident.
Oh, were you naked and you wearing the cape, right? And you answered the door. I'm trying.
You had given me a bath, from what I understand.
Yeah, Justin was really a character as a little kid. Like he always had
the Pizza Man
costumes. He went through a big Michael Jackson phase where he had his parachute pants and he had the glove.
I had the glove, in preschool.
Yeah, and he was a superhero fan, and he had a Superman cape, and I think
no, that was just a towel.
I had to bathe him, and then I don't remember
Yeah.
who was at the door though.
The pizza guy.
Oh, we ordered pizza. The pizza guy, and he answered the door naked
And
with a
yeah, with a towel on my back as a cape. I think it was the towel because she had given me a bath. And I think you knew the pizza delivery guy.
Oh, probably. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but probably.
How embarrassing that would have.
Justin was funny though. When he came to, like, my mom would sometimes bring him to visit me at college, and she always tells the story that one time they went to pick him up, and I was at Northwestern, and he came out carrying his diapers. So that shows like how little he was. Like, your mom must have given you a stack of diapers. And he got in the car and he goes, "Oh, I forgot my aftershave." Dude.
I forgot to put on my aftershave. Yeah.
He was always a character though. Very cute.
And he still retains that great sense of humor to this day and his amazing creativity. And of course, everyone knows he's a phenomenal filmmaker with a bright, brilliant future. And Justin, congratulations on the wins at the film festivals recently. And I think I'm as excited as the rest of the world to see what you're going to do. And if there's anything I can do to help you, don't hesitate.
Absolutely. And then one thing I'd like to point out as well, Mel always instilled education into me to learn things and study things. And I would, do rote memory. I remember you would quiz me on who shot Abraham Lincoln and stuff like that, and the date and where it happened and all of that. And I think that kind of built my lifelong learning, and it helped me become, an educated person, and that I enjoy learning. And I think it also kind of helped you because you ended up homeschooling all three of your kids.
I did. Yeah. That's so nice that you remember that. I remember teaching you things on the globe too, like showing you where different countries were. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I've always loved to teach. And yeah, I think you probably were my first experience teaching, honestly. And
I'm going to ask you, Mel, are you musically inclined as well?
No, although my kids always joke because I played the saxophone like in was it grade school? So they are always like, "Ha, she plays the saxophone." No, I wasn't good. No, I love music. I'm a fan of music, and we did expose the kids to music when they were little, and instilled a real love of music in them before anything else. They all started violin pretty early, but I tried to always make it really fun. And my priority was always to teach the love of the instrument, because you can get people in the music world where it's all about work, 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 and some of the joy of the music just disappears. And so I feel like hopefully I did a good job of, I hope, instilling the love and the fun and the joy of music to my kids, even though I wish I could play. I have all the knowledge in my head for violin. Like, I know the notes and things, but could I do it? No, I could not put it all together and make it's actually really humbling if you pick up a violin and you try even to play like Twinkle. Like, it's so much harder than you would think it is. It's not like piano where you can just hit the note. It's like to get the bow to make the right sound on the string. That's the hardest part.
Josh was on the show not too long ago, and we had the most amazing conversation with him. And I have to say, his mom hasn't disappointed us either. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What instrument would you play if you could choose one?
Probably violin. Like, if I could just snap my fingers and be really good at it, violin. I do really, really love the violin. I didn't really, before my kids played, I didn't know that much about it. I just liked classical music. We listened to a lot of, I remember doing opera when the kids were little, like having them listen to Pavarotti and stuff. But I've become such a fan of the violin music. It's so beautiful and so expressive. Speaking of Joshua and traveling, he's in Belgium this week making a CD, his first CD.
Right.
That's what he said.
Told us about that. Yeah.
And he just finished.
Exciting.
He finished Sunday night, and then yesterday was his only day before he had to fly home today. and yesterday he got food poisoning,
Oh,
like
no.
really bad food poisoning. So we're like, oh, thank God it was after the recording, because they
Yeah.
worked for like 3-4 straight days on the recording. And then as soon as the recording finished, he got food poisoning.
Well, that's
So he's
fortuitous.
home today with food poisoning.
He was so excited to work with the new pianist as well.
Yeah, he really liked him too. He did.
Good.
Justin, is there anything you want to ask Mel that you've always wanted to ask and never had the time or the forethought to do so? Here's the time to do it.
Yeah. Why did you dress me up as a cheerleader? Do you remember that? On Halloween? You and Jennifer, I believe.
Oh, did we? I don't remember that.
Yes. There's pictures. Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember, but
Yeah.
well, you were very cute. I can imagine you were a very cute cheerleader.
I came in second in the Mr. 4th of July.
I remember that. I don't know. That is so not like me. It's so funny that, well, I think that was more your mom. But yeah, we entered Justin in a some sort of like
Mr. 4th of July.
Yeah, it was like there were girls too, though, right? Like there were Mr. and not Miss. There were like the little boy and the little girl.
Yeah, I think there was.
And boy, it brought out our competitiveness. I remember we were like outraged that you got. Did you get like second?
Second, yeah,
You
and
should get.
because I did the splits while we were waiting around, I was bored and I did the splits, and my mom always gives me shit about it because she thinks that's why I lost. But the kid that won passed away early. So
Wow.
Really? Oh, geez.
yeah, I remember reading in the paper that he had died.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's sad. Wow.
can't remember his name, but yeah, it is sad. So, he hit that lifestyle and brought him down.
He peaked early.
Yeah. So, you kind of mentioned where you're going next. You said, was it the cruises?
Yeah, so yeah, the cruise is next, and then in March I'm going to a different place in the Middle East, because now that I've experienced the Middle East, I'm like interested to go to countries I haven't seen yet, and I'm going to Muscat, Oman, and outside of Muscat also. So going to Oman, which I've heard is like the pearl of the Middle East. Don't know, 'cause I haven't been there yet. And then I'm doing Bangkok and Phuket, Thailand. And that's in March. And then in May is the Around the World trip, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Then Josh and his fiance are getting married in Cancun in July. So I had.
Oh, wow.
And then next October, Sanda and I are going to Europe again together. She's my cousin.
Yeah.
And we went to Europe like a year and a few months ago. And it was going to be like her only trip ever to Europe, but she loved it so much, and so she's like, let's go again. So I'm like,
Yeah.
So that'll be really fun.
So Melanie,
Bearz and
Melanie, in all of your travel experience, Melanie, what is the one item you have always found necessary to travel with, and unlike Carl Malden, you can't leave home without it?
My pillow, which I really wish it weren't, because I go carry on only. I try to like not overpack. I cannot sleep without my pillow. So I put it in a compression bag and I roll it up and I squeeze all the air out. Try to squeeze it in, but I make do, but it does interfere with how many items of clothing I can bring, because I cannot go without my pillow. It's number one.
Yeah. And so how can people find you?
The most the channel that I'm doing the most on is YouTube, because those are long form videos. So I do reviews of flights, reviews of hotels and resorts, and I have quite a few videos teaching how to begin travel hacking. So YouTube, Mel's Miles. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook also, but as I'm sort of a beginner video editor, most of my time and effort's going into YouTube until I get quicker at it, and then I will spread my wings more and get into the other forms of social media too. But I like
Mel, if this was one of your trips, how would you review us?
Well, I would say they were both very nice and informed and had good questions, and it was an interesting podcast that flowed easily. It didn't take a lot of effort. It was just conversational, that you were two guys that were very easy to talk to.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And thanks for being on the show. We've
That-
learned quite a bit about traveling and some hacking. And if you have other questions, find her on the social media or through YouTube. And, you can request some information.
Mhm.
And, so that's it. We'll wrap it up now. I've got a cat here, I think, that wants out of the room. Um, so you've been listening to the Barely Audible podcast. Thanks for being on, Mel.
In a world full of stories, how does one author make their book stand out from the rest? Book trailers for authors. Breathtaking movie-style trailers that bring your book to life. Stunning cinematic video, epic royalty-free music. Packages starting at less than $200. Book trailers for authors. Makes a great gift for the writer in your life. Find us on Facebook at Book Trailers for Authors.